Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the first ever PCM TV workshop. My name is Jimmy Young. I'm the founder of Pro Cannabis Media, and I've also got a few years under my belt as a broadcaster, 40 if you're counting at home. I started my career in 1977 at WBZ Channel 4 in their sports department with one of my mentors, Jimmy Myers. That was a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, folks. That being said, I now have a lot of stuff, a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience that I'd like to share with our audience. And that's what we're going to start with today, is showing you some of the skills that you will acquire in our PCM TV workshops. And then if you're interested, you can sign up for one-on-one training with yours truly. And we'll talk you through that over the next few minutes or so. We are working with our video director, Dan French. So whenever he's ready, he's going to punch up our title slide and we'll get this thing going, because what I want to do is find an army of multimedia journalists, backpack journalists who are ready to document the end of prohibition of cannabis in the United States of America. We're on our way. It's a slow, bumpy road, plenty of stuff to talk about, plenty of different ideas and different things that'll happen as far as getting the legalization process going in your state. But I'm in Massachusetts. We've had this adult use going now since 2018, and it's flourishing. It is flourishing in Massachusetts. It's coming to New Jersey on Thursday of this week. And before you know it, it'll be in New York and New York City as well. And we are looking to expand our team of Weed Talk News correspondents. I call them Cannacasters, and we'll explain that in a minute. But first up, just want to give you a quick little rundown of what we might be doing. This is, of course, our workshop, and these are little images from some of the interviews that we've done, some of the programs that we've done over the last 2 years. And of course, I'm going to put my email out there, info@Pro Cannabis Media, and you can certainly talk to me after this is over. We're going to obviously record this and then share this all over our network. Right now, we're streaming it live because, to be honest with you, I like to do everything in one take. It's very simple. You've done it for long enough. You don't want to have to go back and redo the news if you can help it. And I certainly would like to just get this thing going. And we are also going to be joined by a Cannacaster, one of our We Talk News correspondents from Florida, in just a few minutes. Her name is Heather Allman. But first, I want to talk a little bit about what the Cannacaster webinar workshops are going to include. Let's jump ahead to the next slide, if you would, Dan, and we'll get into our Cannacaster webinar workshops. All right, what are we going to do? Well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to give you a little background on the amazing plant that is the cannabis sativa plant. I call that Cannabis 101, because if you're going to report or host a podcast or host a show on the end of prohibition in your state, you're going to want to know a little bit of the background, a little bit of the history, the politics, and very important, the sociology of weed over the last 100 years. What this curriculum is about, it's very similar to a curriculum, an oral communication curriculum that I've been teaching now for over a dozen years. It's epic. Okay, let's face it. Whatever I do, it seems like it's epic. It's always something special. EPIC. E stands for enunciation or clarity. Pronunciation. That stands for how words sound. I, inflection. That's pitch, tone, volume. Punch the word. That's inflection. That's an important skill if you're going to be a public speaker or a broadcaster. And the last one is C, and that's cadence, the rhythm of how you deliver your words. For whatever reason, I've been very conversational in my life on this earth, and I'm able to talk to people. And for some reason, people sometimes listen to me. When I was a sportscaster for 25 years, I did have some semblance of credibility and knowledge about the world of sports. I still do, by the way, but I'm now moving this subject material into the cannabis arena and cannabis environment. We'll also learn, what is news? How do stories become news? And what is newsworthy? I always say to people when I teach at the college level, and I am going back in the fall to Curry College to teach my Introduction to Sportscasters class this coming fall. I always tell people that, have you ever taken a selfie and shared that with others? Those of you who are into Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or whatever of the meta universe that's out there that you use on a regular basis, if you've taken a selfie and shared that with others, you've actually told a story about that moment in time in your life, and you're comfortable with sharing that with others. So you are a storyteller. We're all born storytellers, and we like to tell stories. I'll explain what storyboarding is, because just in case you want to expand on a one frame, one photo story and actually include video and audio and graphics to your story, you're going to want to put it in a little plan. It's called a storyboard, and we'll get into that as well. One of the most important things that we'll be teaching is how to host your own show. That could be a podcast. And by the way, just because I'm comfortable on camera doesn't mean you have to be. I can help you with that. Or guess what? You could just turn off the camera and just do an audio podcast. Everything we do here at Pro Cannabis Media, we do a video file, and then we take that audio file and we distribute that onto the podcast universe, the Spotifys, the iTunes, all those podcast distribution networks that are out there. So I'm going to certainly help you with that if you want to host your own show. And all of these skills, as you get more and more comfortable talking, you will become a better public speaker. A lot of people are scared to talk in front of eyeballs, live people in a room. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I much prefer talking to an inanimate object like the camera than like 500 eyeballs or 15,000 eyeballs or as many as 60,000 in a stadium somewhere. Those are all things that I used to do back in the day. Now it's really strictly one-on-one, or just me and my camera, my computer equipment, and my team of video directors. Oh, wait, that's just one guy. His name's Dan French. One other thing, very important. When you are going to broadcast, or when you are going to write a script that you want to deliver to an audience, you might use something called a teleprompter. Yes, it is something I've used in the past, and I actually have one in my studio. And usually whenever I do a promotional announcement, I make sure that I read it off the teleprompter. That too is a skill. Not sure how much we're going to get into that, but we are going to get into writing for the spoken word. That's broadcast journalism, because writing for the spoken word is completely different than writing how your elementary school teachers set up your sentences with your nouns and your verbs and your adjectives and making sure that's a complete sentence and all that. When we talk to our friends, we're not talking in complete sentences. We're talking in groups of words so we can communicate directly to the people that we care about or we want to get to know. That's what broadcast journalism is, writing for the spoken word. And of course, we'll talk about reading a script for voiceovers. That's when you see something on the screen similar to the graphic you're seeing, but you wouldn't see my face. So I'll just do one of these and then I'll just talk. That's my voice over the graphic. Get it? It's called a voiceover. All right. All of this will improve your communication inside and outside your profession, whether you want to go into broadcasting or become a cannacaster for Pro Cannabis Media or not. Everything that we will teach you in these workshops and what I will do in my one-on-one work will improve your ability to communicate with others. I will not, however, be teaching you how to listen, which is probably the most important thing you can do, especially if you're a host of a show, because you want to listen to the people that you are actually talking to. I admit I am listening challenged at times. I'll admit that. Okay, now the next slide, I'm going to just drop them on the ground here because you don't see that because it's off camera. The next slide here is how I'm going to teach this. That's right. This is what we're going to be doing in our little webinar and workshops. I'm going to assign people interactive assignments. That may be as simple as posting a script that I've written for the spoken word and then asking you to read it aloud. That would be interactive. So if you're in our little webinar room, if we get a lot of people and we actually host a webinar, we'll be able to do that. We'll do real live show simulations. What does that mean? It means during the training, you'll actually be doing what you want to do as far as learning how to host your own show. You'll be hosting your own show. Now, it may just be you and me in this room or any room, but it is going to be as if you were doing it live, similarly to how and what I'm doing today. Yes, there will be homework and there will be personal reviews of your work. However, you will not be graded on this at all. I promise. No grades, because just by taking the step of wanting to improve your communication skills, to me, that means you've already accomplished something, you've already learned something, and you want to get better at what you are doing. Yes, there will be one-on-one coaching and critique sessions available by appointment. And in fact, in a little while, we're going to bring in one of our Cannacasters, and we're not going to tell her to share her work with us, but I'm going to go over some of the things that I've seen in her improvement, because when I first met Heather Allman, she had never done anything like this before. And I worked with her for really just a few hours. And before I knew it, she was ready to go on camera. And she is our regular Cannacaster reporter, correspondent from Florida. There will be also personal field production assignments. What does that mean? It means I'm going to teach you some backpack journalism. I'm going to teach you how to use your iPhone or your Android to actually be a news gathering device that will allow you to sit down with someone, put it in a little tripod, and have a conversation with them and create content, an interview with someone, if you will. And you can use that as your podcast, your interview show, your vlogcast, whatever you want to call it. To me, it's content, it's audio and video. And we like to turn everything into two pieces of content for just one piece of effort, if you will. Yes, I will be reaching into my Rolodex, my contacts, for some celebrity appearances and interviews. And when possible, I'll be asking them to join us. But let's get a little more background about the plant, because actually this is all about the plant. So Dan, the next slide talks about all about the plant. Did you know that in the 20th century, 5 million prescriptions were written by doctors for cannabis in this country between 1900 and 1910. And yes, those are the same doctors that went to the finest med schools at the time in this country, like Harvard Med, Yale Med, NYU Med. Yes, those doctors, those graduates were prescribing the medicine cannabis for their patients at that time. We'll get into what happened with politics, which is the next thing, because by 1937, the United States government had put together this tax act, which basically prohibited the public or anybody from getting cannabis, paying for it without a hefty tax. Like, for instance, instead of a $5 eighth of an ounce or $10 eighth of an ounce or a $50 eighth of an ounce, depending on where, of course, you're getting your cannabis from, you would pay a tax of about 5 times that amount just to have access to it. So it was a very hefty tax that was inferred, and that's how this plant got prohibited. And yes, race played a huge role in this movement. Okay, and we're going to get into that a little bit as well. And we'll talk a little bit about sociology and how the powers that be kept those who were using cannabis at bay and kept them in their place by controlling access to this plant. And we'll get into a little bit of the cannabis culture. That's the next slide. And let's talk about the cannabis culture, shall we? Because it's pretty fun. First of all, I've got a few things out there. 420, April 20th, 20 past 4. This is the traditional time in the cannabis culture that people partake, imbibe, use, smoke, inhale, eat, whatever way they titrate, whatever way they get it into their system. 420 is the code word for it. I'll even give you a little history about it. It all started in 1971 with a group of high school students at San Rafael, California. They were called the Waldos. And yes, they used to meet across the street from the high school at the Louis Pasteur statue at 20 past 4 to catch a little buzz. And then, of course, one of those guys was friendly with a gentleman who played bass, I'm pretty sure, with the Grateful Dead. You've heard of the Grateful Dead rock band. I certainly hope you have. I'm not going to sing any songs, but the Dead then publicized the 420 thing. Law enforcement used 420 as code for public use of cannabis going on at this location. And it's been part of the whole deal. I mentioned a few of these names that are on here because we've interviewed Tommy Chong. We've interviewed Steve D'Angelo, the founder of the Last Prisoner Project, and Michael Thompson, who was behind bars, I believe, for 25 years before he was released last year. The role that hip hop and Rastafarians and Jamaica, music has always been part of the cannabis culture. I don't care what kind of music it is. It has always been part of the cannabis culture. I threw Trixie Garcia in here because that's Jerry's daughter. Jerry Garcia, of course, was the lead guitarist for the Grateful Dead. And I got to interview his daughter, Trixie, and share some of the stories that I have about the Grateful Dead. And there are the Deadheads and the Waldos. And yes, I'll even explain even more in detail about that 420 origin. So let's talk a little bit about the Cannacaster skills that I'll be going into. And that's the next slide we'll throw up here. Yes, it's the same as a broadcaster, really and truly. You're going to speak aloud and you're going to use your EPIC. You're going to make sure that people understand you when you talk. You're going to make sure that the rhythm of the delivery of your speech is varied so people will want to tune in to you. And there are the 4 words and their definitions: EPIC, enunciation, pronunciation, inflection, and cadence. And I believe that if you master those 4 skills, you should be a much better public speaker. You can certainly become a broadcaster. That's one of the, I should get a kangaroo court fine for stumbling, because that's one of the 4 commandments, if you will, of EPIC. That would be the P word, pronunciation. And yes, we all screw up sometimes. You're human. Welcome to the human race. I'm going to explain how to host your own show. That's the next slide. And you'll see me on this next slide with our new news anchor, Elena Pinto. Elena Pinto is a former morning anchor for a news station here in the Boston market, where we come from. And Elena is our anchor on Weed Talk News. Pretty sure we have 14 correspondents now calling in their reports once a week for our news show that we put out every Friday afternoon. Usually news is done live, but here we're still trying to figure out what is the best way to deliver this content to the people that are following us. And very, very happy to report that we're now up to over 9,000 subscribers on YouTube. So if you happen to be watching this on YouTube and you haven't subscribed, please, let's get over the 10,000 mark before, let's say, where are we? April? Let's make it the beginning of July. Okay, so we have a few weeks to go here, and tell your friends, share this content, talk a little bit about what we've been doing here, and we'll see if we can get that subscription number up to over 10,000. This is basically the script to how you can host your own show. I'm not going to read it to you, but basically it is, hi, everybody. Welcome to the name of the show. I'm the host of the show, and today on the show, we're going to be talking about X with my special guest, Groucho Marx. People have no idea who Groucho Marx is unless you're my age, okay? That being said, Groucho, thank you so much for coming in today. Well, that'll do it for the end of this show. For my guest, Groucho Marx, I'm your host, Jimmy Young. Thanks for watching. Have a little closing line, like, it's a whole new world of weed out there. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. That's pretty much how you intro a show, how you outro a show. If you end up with sponsorships and you need to take a break, we'll certainly get into how to tease your audience to stick around after the break, and even explain to you what a tease is supposed to do. Now we'll go on to the next slide, which is broadcast journalism is now backpack journalism. Basically, that means if you have an iPhone, you can be an eyewitness to news. We see this all the time. Whenever there is horrific news on the traditional news, you know that half the video that you see from that scene is shot by people that had their phones, brought them out, hit the record button, pointed it in the right direction, hopefully turning it in a 16:9 ratio, as opposed to use those on the Instagram side who like the vertical thing. But if you do it vertically, you're going to get bars on the side. See, you may have learned something already. 16:9 is the ratio. Turn your phone to horizontal. Okay. And now, like I said, you're going to carry your microphone and your phone in your backpack, and you're ready to become a reporter if you happen to be on the scene. Now let's go to the next slide, which is the inverted triangle. And for those of you who have never had any journalism courses or thought about becoming a journalist, this is basically how you tell the story with your words in a script. And you always start with the most newsworthy information at the top. Yes, the who, what, when, where, why, and how of that story. And then you can get into the details. And then at the very end, perhaps if you have time, other general info or background on that story to advance the story. So it's an inverted triangle. And again, we'll go over that in our little workshops that we hope to be running in the not too distant future. I'm really interested to see if anybody's interested in looking at this, signing up for some either one-on-one training or sign up for our free workshops that we're going to do once a month. Hear that, Dan? I just decided we're going to do these things once a month. Okay. Storyboarding is the next slide. Let me explain what a storyboard is. It's pretty easy. If you read this from left to right, okay, opening wide shot, a title, a locator. You'll notice this in many news stories. They'll start with a wide shot, set the scene with a wide view of what's going on. And then you want to go in a little tighter. We'll call that a medium shot. And if you are in this story, you can actually be on camera at that point. And then, of course, you do a voiceover over some of the footage that you've collected. That's called B-roll. And that B-roll will set up your first interview. Now, it's not going to be the whole interview. You could certainly do a documentary if you want. But in the news world, we want it to be short and sweet. We call it quick and dirty. And we want the facts. We want the headlines. We want the significance. And we want you to move on or advance your story with an interview, perhaps with someone who's involved and can actually give you an opinion about the story, give you their impressions of it, or their reactions to when they were seeing the flames of the house go up, or whatever it is. This is how you advance your story and build out your story with an audio base, and then you add video on top of that. And I know this probably is going over a lot of your people's heads, and that's okay, because this is a lot of material just to go through in a short period of time, but that's really what we're trying to do here. And I've already gone longer than I expected. So I will tell you that if you do want to sign up for with me, one-on-one training, it's the same fees that I've been getting for the last 13 years. I trained 10-year-olds to 18-year-olds during our first business, which was Young Broadcasters of America, from 2008 to 2013. I continue to teach a lot of these skills at the college level in the greater Boston area. And like I said, I'll be teaching my Sportscaster course at Curry College this fall. So next slide is the sign up slide. If you'd like to reach me, you can. Info at Pro Cannabis Media is the way to do it. These are my fees. And yes, we can send it over via Venmo. And eventually we'll also be able to take Visa and MasterCard. Now, I think Heather Allman has been in this waiting room now for quite a while. Is she still with us, Dan? I'm going to say yes, no. And there she is. Terrific. Welcome. Hi, Heather. Is she unmuted? Is she unmuted? She's got to unmute yourself. You've got to unmute yourself. And as soon as I hear you say, hi, Jimmy, I'll know that you've unmuted.
Hi, Jimmy. Hello, Jimmy. I just demonstrated. Make sure you get off mute.
Well, you know what? That's everybody who's ever been in the field, Heather, has always had this issue. At some point, we go out with our cameras, we set up our interviews, and then we forget to hit record, or we hit the record button twice, which turns it off. And
right.
that happens. So you know what? Technology drives us all nuts, but you need this technical equipment to create the recording of the file. Heather, did you watch that little webinar I gave just now?
I did. I was enjoying it, and you caught me off guard. I was watching it, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm on." Okay, so that's live. I mean, that's what he means by you're live in the moment, but it's recorded, and it's okay because that's spontaneous in itself, and that's what we're trying to do. I am not as good at it as I'd like to be, but I'm getting better thanks to Jimmy and what we've been working on here today. And the facts and being quick and dirty is where I'm trying to get better at.
Well, as you know, look, I tried to do this in 15 minutes and I doubled it. Okay. So even those who have done this many times, it's just because I've got so much material to share with others. And I can certainly adapt my one-on-one tutorials to the needs of that person. Maybe it's someone like Heather, who was a writer for the Cannabis Law Report, right, Heather?
Yes, and I did come with a little advantage on the public speaking because I was a professor at University of West Florida for many years and taught public speaking to college age students. But it's not the same when you know you have a 50-minute time window versus having that quick and dirty, what minute and a half, 3 minutes, however long you may happen to get
Right.
to get your story across.
Right. And Heather, one of the little interactive activities that I have in my workshops is how many words can you say in 30 seconds? How many words can you say in 45 seconds? And again, don't look down, just start talking and then stop when you think you've reached that 30-second moment or 45-second. Before you know it, you're going to know how to fill that time, how much you can say in 45 seconds, 30 seconds, 15 seconds. And one of my drills is, those disclaimers at the end of all those big pharma commercials that are out there, right?
Absolutely.
Not
Yes.
responsible for, blah, 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 blah. And can you get it done in 10 seconds? That's also one of I throw up 10 seconds of copy and see if you can get it done in under 10 seconds and still be understood. That's the most important thing. You're a communicator, right?
That's the tricky part is the enunciation while you're getting in the main points and keeping it to that time limit. And yes, the timing, when Jimmy worked with me, he really emphasized that time, how long it takes you to take 30 seconds and then triple that and then do it again. And you end up with 3 minutes, 5 minutes, and you just keep doing it until you can get it down to that time limit that you've set for yourself and still be understood clearly.
Right. And that's the most important thing. You're communicating with others. You want to make sure that people can understand you. I am sure all of us have been in classrooms with teachers, lecturers who, let's just say, they're not the most stimulating public speakers. Okay.
Absolutely no.
And I don't know if anybody's ever taken a nap in class. Like I definitely did this at times when I was bored. But that being said, you know how to control the room once you learn some of the tricks that I can share and help you do. And the other thing that I try to get rid of is something called gap fillers. Heather, do you know what a gap filler is?
Very
good. Very good. Exactly. Not an easy thing to do. Not an easy thing to do at all. But
it's better to pause. If you pause for that moment and think of exactly what it is you're trying to get across, you don't have to fill every space.
Right. And here's a little tidbit. When you take that pause, instead of making a sound which pushes the air out of your mouth, take a full breath in and fill your lungs back up. That gives you enough time to gather your thoughts and then keep going without filling in that gap with an or ah. Not an easy thing to do, something you should be practicing on a regular basis. And the key to this whole thing, Heather, is can you say as much as possible in as few words as possible? And I know there are people out there laughing if they know who I am, because Jimmy, we should probably tell you to wrap it up in 30 seconds. If somebody told me in my ear to wrap it up in 30 seconds, guess what? I'd wrap it up in 25 seconds and have 5 seconds to spare because I know how long to go.
That's the key. What you said earlier, I mean, really helped me because I've been trying to get my message out, and sometimes I put it on paper and get that word count because I know I'm way over. I know I can't say all that in my time frame, and that is a tricky thing to do. You have to stop just like that and get back on track.
Right, exactly right. And Heather, you've come so far from the very first day when we started working. You're at the point now that I definitely trust you on your own, except that one time when you decided to do a documentary. Okay. But that's okay. That was fun. And we all learned that lesson that way. And there was so much stuff to talk about, right? I understand. Totally understand. And that's the beauty of experiential learning. That's learning.
And the triangle.
Right.
Your triangle. Yes. I like that graphic a lot. That visual in your head is going to help me moving forward. So I learned something today already.
Good. That's the most beautiful thing of that's probably music to my ears more than anything else, Heather. I so appreciate you taking some time listening to the whole little workshop about what we're doing. And, you know, now we're going to have this out in the internet world, and hopefully people will be interested enough to contact me and sign up for my one-on-one training, because I really do believe that we could do a much better job with one-on-one, and we can get it done in an hour. We can get a lot of repetition in. And that to me is how I've always kind of taught this. If I get 3 or 4 people in, that cuts down on the repetitions. And I'm not quite sure that has the same impact. People saw my prices. These are the same prices that I've gotten for the last 13 years. I didn't go up on pricing because I'll be honest with you, I think that's what it's worth, you know? And the beautiful thing about what Heather does with us is she volunteers her time and effort for the cause. And she too can sign up for one-on-one training with me, but in exchange, she doesn't have to pay those fees. She just gets me for free. So
yes, but I benefited from you for free also, and I'm trying to share that with the viewers, and really just know that it's very helpful to have that one-on-one, almost a mentoring session where you can just brainstorm with someone who's a peer and a colleague.
That's right. And here's my credibility right here. This is what we call a prop in the business. Okay. I'm very proud.
I will give you a clap. You deserve it.
It does say 1997. I'd really like to get one for the 21st century too. And maybe the people out there will help us do that, because if we are doing Emmy quality work and Emmy caliber work, then you will get noticed even more, and even perhaps turn it into a career if you'd like. But we could talk about that offline. For now, I want to say goodbye. I want to say thank you to Heather Allman. I want to say thank you to Dan French, my video director, who continues to share different things. And look, there's my cell phone and my email. So if you hung out for this long, you get that personally. And as we always say at all of our productions here, remember, it's a whole new world of weed out there. Use it responsibly. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I look forward to working with you in the future.